Very few things in history are black and white. A lot of it is gray, and that includes the Civil War. It was actually fighting for states' rights.
States' rights to do what?
Excuse me, sir?
States' rights to do what? What did you want to use those rights for? You usually don't mention that part. I want to hear it. I wonder what you want to do with them.
Well, the Confederacy didn't want to be oppressed by the North.
Really, what were they preventing you from doing? What did they not want you to do?
Listen, my friend, there was more to it than slavery for why we made the Confederacy.
That is really, really interesting, because the guy who made the Confederacy, the vice president, said that was because they wanted to have slavery, and all the state constitutions said they wanted to have slavery, and they seceded the moment that the president got elected that was going to abolish slavery. Boy, the Confederacy sure looks slavery adjacent, at least. Now, anyways, states' rights do what?
You're ignoring our other concern.
Yeah, but among the concerns was slavery, so I don't care, because you deserve it, because you're evil. And slavery is evil. You should know this. By the way, could you answer my question, you fucking traitor? States' rights to do what?
Well, it's our heritage.
It lasted 5 years. The Annoying Orange has existed longer than the Confederacy did. The fucking Annoying Orange, dude. You're gonna celebrate a nation so fucking weak the Annoying Orange outlived it?
Well, states' rights.
Got Douglas.
Each Dixie boy must understand that he must mind his Uncle Sam away, 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 away. We'll all go down to Dixie.
Well, that was Doobus Goobus. An odd channel name, but my word, who am I to talk? Because this is WYCD Wicked. That stands for What You Can Do. Thank you so much for joining me on this fashionably late stream. It is a 9:30 stream instead of a 9 stream. Why? Exactly, for the reasons Wicked Foxy Dragon has pointed out. I didn't catch the alarm. I apologize. But starting it off with some Doobus Goobus there, showing us why animation is a damn handy skill to learn if you want to be persuasive. I'm working on it. Trying to improve the pixel progressives of the early days. And because to my shock, we passed 3,000 subs. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much. We are going to finally release the pixel progressive stuff that I've been working on, because it's better now. How are you doing? I hope folks are having a good start to the week. We got Rex Trek. Hello. Evening from the Boomer. Oh, good to see you, sir. Wicked Foxy Dragon, the word charm, doing lots of work there in my earlier response. That's fair. That's fair. Oh. Let me have a look. I saw Rex Trek, it's a beautiful summer night here in SNJ Philly. I got my Puff Puff, so very nice. Domenico, woo, Wicked at it again. Yep, Tao and Jack, hello, good to see you. Yes, indeed. Well, we have a delightful one to start off with. I'm more interested in the beginning segment, if I'm honest, than the commentary that follows. But it's Brian Tyler Cohen, so we're gonna watch the lion's share of it, because it's just a delight. Never dislike hearing from him. Let's have a gander, and I'll probably record. Why not? Starting off the week with one from Brian Tyler Cohen here. He clipped a piece of Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking to a crowd full of Republicans and doing, apparently accidentally, an advertisement for Joe Biden in 2024. Good. We've been talking from the jump about strategy, and while this channel does focus a lot on bringing people out of that far right rabbit hole, we're also realistic about 2024. Strategy for winning the House, the White House, and the Senate is going to include reaching centrists and convincing them that normal politics are now left politics. If you are somebody that doesn't follow politics too closely, you just want to make a practical decision, a responsible decision, but you don't want to think about it too much, then your default, vote for the lefty. Here is Marjorie Taylor Greene helping us out to make that case.
Lyndon B. Johnson is very similar to Joe Biden. How are they the same? They're both Democrat socialist. Lyndon B. Johnson was the...
I know. She's coming out the gate saying something straight up untrue. Joe Biden is not a democratic socialist, but let's let her keep going because this is pretty good. And most of what she says is kind of true.
Majority leader in the Senate. Does that sound familiar? He was vice president to Kennedy. Joe was vice president to Obama. He was appointed as the president after JFK was assassinated, then he was elected. His big socialist programs were the Great Society. The Great Society were big government programs to address education, medical care, urban problems, rural poverty, transportation, Medicare, Medicaid, food stamps, and welfare, the Office of Economic Opportunity, and big labor and labor unions. Now, LBJ had the Great Society, but Joe Biden...
Big labor? I know that there is a tendency to put the word big in front of something, to make it seem like it is a corrupt organization of some sort. Here we go. Hey, there we are. Yeah, to put the word big in front of something, to make it seem evil. And that works with big tobacco, that works with big oil, that works with big tech, that works with big banks, that works even with big transportation, big trains, just generally big business. But it doesn't really work for labor. Because when you say big labor, you are referring to what? The laborers. Us. We should have a lot of power. That should be the way this works. She keeps going like this, making such a case. And I just want to comment, I'm pretty sure she did not start looking into how politics works until now, until she's been elected for multiple years. She's pulling out the glasses and having to read these notes because she truly didn't know this stuff, and she is looking to try to frame it now as a bad thing. And the problem is her inexperience is going to show in such a way that people with just a little bit of political knowledge or, experience in the world, actually having dealt with some of these programs, is going to utterly expose her for what she is. Let's just let her keep bearing herself.
had Build Back Better, and he still is working on it. The largest public investment in social infrastructure and environmental programs that is actually finishing what FDR started, that LBJ expanded on, and Joe Biden is attempting to complete. Socialism. Meanwhile, we are now $32 trillion in debt, with record high home.
You'll also note, you're not really hearing the crowd go wild there. I mean, it's a small thing, but I think that crowd is confused by this. One other thing, I was talking with the True North Eager Beaver fellas, and when we were talking about our least favorite politicians, one of the things we talked about was how, as a person, we do not like, neither of us liked LBJ. But his policies were fantastic. I mean, he had an excellent policy set. Very, very funny to me that she's actually right. There really is some overlap with Joe Biden, even in my own sentiments, with LBJ in that regard. In this case, I don't really have any feelings about Joe Biden as a person. You know, fine. As a person, I like him there. He seems like a fine person. But I didn't support him all that strongly. And his policies are things that I like. They ended up being, I believe he had to get there through being pushed, but still, I mean, end of the day, if you're not splitting hairs and you're just looking at the man's record, one of the best in modern history.
40-year record inflation. We're losing the U.S. dollar as the #1 world currency. We're losing our freedoms. Our government is one big, fat, bloated machine, and it's killing the American dream.
This is Marjorie Taylor Greene warning Americans about all the horrific things that Joe Biden is trying to do as president, like, for example, address problems related to rural poverty, education, and medical care, and do things similar to Lyndon B. Johnson, like passing Medicare and Medicaid, and finish what FDR started, one of the most successful and beloved presidents in the history of this country for his work growing the middle class and fighting for working Americans. Oh, the humanity. This really...
I'm glad he pointed that out, because I should have. Yeah, FDR is one of the most beloved presidents ever. He's one of those, he's almost like John F. Kennedy, where modern Republicans, you know, put him in there with John F. Kennedy and Martin Luther King and any other person famously on the left, where Republicans wait a generation and then pretend like what they support now is something that these folks would have been behind. And obviously the answer is no, but it's funny that Marjorie Taylor Greene didn't pick up on that, and that she instead chose to treat FDR, one of the most beloved presidents ever, as though he was a third rail.
Is just a perfect encapsulation of how completely out of touch Republicans are with the average American. Sure, to the right-wing MAGA base that's listening at the event she's speaking at, just the words socialism and Biden are enough to turn them frothing at the mouth, but the average independent voter who watches that clip sees a Republican acting like it is the worst thing in the world that Joe Biden would fight to pass policies that do things like improve education and reduce poverty. And this goes...
Really want to stress that, first of all, put a pin in that. First of all, I did not hear the folks going wild for her saying those things. But I really want to stress that, yeah, any independent voter that sees that is going to be pushed into the Biden camp. If there is such a thing as an independent still, if there's truly somebody who is making up their mind, they will see that and see, more importantly than what Democrats are for, they'll see what Republicans are against. That's huge.
To a fundamental tenet of right-wing ideology, if you can even call it an ideology anymore. Their entire goal is to fearmonger about the ineffectiveness of government, while they themselves are the ones intentionally breaking government to begin with. Also, they can leverage that to achieve some short-term election win, to scapegoat some minority groups, and to pass laws that give massive tax cuts to billionaires and corporations. But here's the thing. Government works when you let it work. That is why programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the Affordable Care Act, all of which were enacted by Democrats, by the way, are so popular. It's why the Inflation Reduction Act and the American Rescue Plan and the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law and the CHIPS and Science Act and other major pieces of legislation signed by Joe Biden have been so successful at creating record job growth while inflation is finally below 3%, a rate far better than most of the rest of the world. Here's another example from the Inflation Reduction Act that I think is a perfect encapsulation of why election electing Democrats matters so much. Here's a graph of IRS response times. Because of the Inflation Reduction Act's IRS funding, the IRS was able to provide 87% of customer calls this tax season with live support, up from only 15% last year. The average time on hold decreased from 27 minutes to just 4 minutes. Because of the new IRS funding, Americans are able to get their questions answered quicker, their returns delivered faster, and wealthy tax cheats will finally face more accountability, reducing the tax burden on everyone else while cutting the deficit at the same time.
I mean, so well put. Yeah, there's Marjorie Taylor Greene making an ass of herself and her party. But where was her failure? Because you know what? I don't think you can say she lied. I mean, yeah, all right. She threw that the democratic socialist thing in the beginning. All right, there's one lie. But the rest was just spitting truth. She was saying it like it was a bad thing. But, I mean, it was just facts, and I agree with them. So, what we're going to have here is this happening more and more. One of the downsides one of the many, many downsides to the whole MAGA ideology is that it simply doesn't work. As in it like the parts don't line up. The toolkit ain't there for fixing the machine. It does not work. And that means that anybody who knows how politics works, yeah, especially in the United States, they're probably not joining up with MAGA. Or to make MAGA happy, they have to pretend like they're going to do things that they just can't do. And when I say it doesn't work, I mean like their answers to things are infinite tax breaks for giant companies and at the same time lowering taxes. They're just contradictory things. They want absolutely no government control over you, except they want the president to have unquestionable infinite authority. It's this sort of ridiculousness that really gets put on display more and more. And when you have that, you just don't have experienced politicians taking the job because they don't want to make an ass of themselves, like Marjorie Taylor Greene just did. I think we have probably seen the high water mark for MAGA. It's a hell of a bold thing to say, I know, but I think this is the beginning of the long and embarrassing end for this particular party, now, or rather, sect of the Republican Party. Now, we do need to be sure that when they go down, they take the whole of the Republican Party with them. So be sure to point out, and this is all I ask of you, be sure to point out that MAGA is just an exaggeration of the Republican Party, and use this as an opportunity to convince people that see that clip, that the practical thing to do, the responsible thing to do, the thing that reasonable voters do by default is to vote Democrat. Because that's true. And you want some more truth? Start spreading this around. Democrats are the conservative choice. The anti-American choice, that's the Republican Party. That's pro-business. It's not even pro-business. That's pro-rich person. It's not conservative anymore. It was only ever nominally conservative. No, the actual people who are slow to change are Democrats. So if you got a conservative, you can make them feel better. You can say, look, your friends won't believe you, but the fact is Democrats are conservatives. Setting aside conservative or liberal, Democrats are the reasonable choice. They're actually there to do the job they say they're there to do. So that is what you should tell your friends and family when you show them this clip. Dino, oh man, with a lot of guns. Uh-oh. Jim Byron, she's an honest liar. Yeah. 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 Wireless Mike, FDR was the GOAT. Yeah, he was damn good. Amanda Patton, hello. Good to see you. Wicked Foxy Dragon. That is Brian Tyler Cohen. He's my future ex-husband. Wholeheartedly agreed. Amanda Patton. Who is that commentator? He's almost as handsome as Jake Dragelis is. Well, the commentator is, yeah, as mentioned, Brian Tyler Cohen. I don't know who that other cat is. This is your old pal, Jake. Domenico, national vote required by law. Now, that's interesting. That is interesting. Not sure how I feel about it, but I will definitely give that concept some thought. When you say required by law, what would be the enforcement mechanism? What happens if you fail to vote? That's my question for you. Is it a tax thing? Not sure. Yeah, as some in the audience will know, I was at a child's birthday party relatively recently. Good God. You think you got the energy to do things until you're doing them sometimes. I was there was no horse like pony ride at the party until old Uncle Jake showed up, and then there were pony rides. Oi. Well, I've got one I want to show y'all because I don't understand it. And I'm hoping we can understand it together. And what the hell, we'll start it off with the intro. I'm not going to do our normal double intro. So here's a thing I'm not familiar with. War. I'm aware of the political side of war, but I have been fortunate enough to not need to know how the actual strategies work. So I've only ever had a very basic understanding of like military tactics. Like it's only ever been things like I've read in historical accounts of yada yada yada. Not really that relevant in terms of modern warfare. To that end, I don't know what's going on in Ukraine right now. Like, I didn't know why there wasn't a massive push when there was the recent mutiny with Prigozhin. And I don't know right now why Ukraine has closed off a retreat route for Russians. But I know somebody who does know a lot about how modern wars are fought, and that's Bo of the Fifth Column.
Howdy there, Internet people. It's Bo again.
Howdy, Bo.
So today we are going to talk about Ukraine and bridges and mistakes and whether or not Ukraine is making one. Because there is a kind of a rule. And it appears that Ukraine may be intentionally trying to break that rule. And it has led to a question. Basically, why is Ukraine so interested in taking out this bridge? If they do that, Russian troops in Crimea don't have an easy avenue of escape. In movies, most times the goal, you want to surround.
So my familiarity. Okay, nice.
Down to the enemy and destroy them. In real life, most times you want to leave them away to run away because it's much better to win the battle with them running away. You're a whole lot less likely to get shot, you know. So it's been held as a smart move to leave your opposition an avenue of retreat. And this is going back thousands of years. There are exceptions to that, though. And if you don't know, the reason this is coming up is because something happened to that bridge again. You know, some people are saying Ukraine hit it. Maybe it's just poor Russian maintenance. But either way, traffic has stopped. So, at least for the moment, that avenue of retreat is cut off. And it is definitely sending the message that Ukraine wants that avenue of retreat cut off. When you're looking at this from the U.S. or from some cushy chair somewhere, there's a very different perspective than the people who were there. That goes without saying. Because most people watching this channel support Ukraine, this may be a little hard, but I want you to pretend you are a Russian soldier occupying Crimea. Ukraine has been presented with an opportunity that they couldn't create themselves, that they couldn't plan this. The only reason that they're in this situation, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's Putin's mismanagement.
Yup.
And they may be trying to take advantage of it. You're a Russian soldier in Crimea. That counteroffensive that everybody's been expecting, everybody's waiting for the big push and all of that stuff. Here in the U.S., people are looking at it like, when's the game going to get started? If you're going to be on the receiving end of that counteroffensive, it's terrifying waiting for it. And that's been going on a long time. Now, in Russian propaganda spaces, stuff that they have access to, you know, Russia's saying, hey, you know, Ukraine launched it and it failed. We've got it. And that's all fine and good for internet commentators. But the average troop on the ground, I mean, they know that they're in the Gilligan's Island of wars. They're on day 500 of their 8-hour tour.
I should not laugh at that, for the record. I'm still going to laugh at it, but I shouldn't. There, I've acknowledged it.
They probably don't have a lot of faith in the information that is coming through the Russian propaganda spaces.
Yeah.
So they're waiting for the counteroffensive. Now, their avenue of retreat has been hit. Combine that with what they heard about Wagner. And it's not just that there was a mutiny. Wagner was their premier force. And they were the force keeping pressure on the East. Not just did they mutiny or try to coup Putin, they're probably not keeping up as much pressure, which means Ukraine might have forces to devote to you.
Good. Good. Towards the beginning of this war, one of the things I was pushing for amongst people I knew that were trying to get word out places was to include... All right, so there was this thing. You can do it if you want to get into this. There was a thing towards the beginning of the war where people would make pro-Putin memes, like pictures. But in the metadata of the pictures, they would include instructions for surrendering to Ukrainian troops. And also the amount of money you could get for surrendering. This was because at the time, a bunch of rich people were funding the surrender. If you turned over equipment with you, well, gosh, you got even more money. So if like a tank unit were to show up and direct Ukrainian authorities to where they had stowed their tank, they would all get paid for surrendering. They'd get paid essentially what amounts to like $55,000 US. Then they would get paid for the tank, which would be like another 55. It's just, I don't know how much, but a good chunk of money for starting out a new life in Ukraine. My point is that it might be time to start that up again. It might be time to, for your old pal Jake to get in touch with those who are arranging these things and provide you with an instruction manual for how to do this. I had backed off on doing this because it looked like we were going into more of a traditional war. But man, the picture Bo paints, first of all, it makes a lot of sense, given just a little bit of empathy and recent events. And number two, it's reminding me that these are in fact human beings. Some of them could just be people who are regular folks. Yeah, I know, crazy. But think of the Iraq War. I had a sibling sign up for that when we were under the belief that Iraq really did have weapons of mass destruction. And by the time that sibling got over there to fight, we knew that they didn't. But it was too late, because the U.S. military has a pretty firm no backsies rule. There's got to be folks like that in Ukraine right now fighting for Russia. And I wonder if we could reach some of them with instructions for how to tap out. Worth thinking about.
And your avenue of retreat is cut off. It's scary. It's scary. And then, on top of this, your command is in just utter disarray. It is not a cohesive organization. And that's very clear. There's a lot of infighting. There's a lot of internal struggles. And then Putin, in his infinite wisdom, has decided to remove all of these commanders. And we're getting more information about who they are. The troops, they're going to get that information, and there's no way for the Russian propaganda space, the military bloggers, to spin that. They know who's getting yanked. Now, for Putin, that's a good move, because those people are not entirely loyal to him, apparently. Something that the troops might notice is that the commanders who agreed with Wagner, well, it seems like they're the better ones. It's going to shake your resolve. Russian troops are not in a good morale space. And taking out their avenue of retreat, while, yeah, I mean, it's against the rule, it's scary. The reason that avenue is left open is so they can leave.
Interesting. And it's touching on, I think, what I was getting at poorly before. Wicked Foxy Dragon pointing out that, yeah, they're human beings, but they're human beings who have, by and large, participated in war crimes. True. I would point out, though, that our siege of Iraq was not much different. I mean, it just wasn't. We tortured folks. We here at home knew we were torturing folks, and we let the government do that. To me, first of all, you could get into the argument: is the individual soldier redeemable for having done what they did? But that's not the point that I wanted to focus on. When I say that they're human beings, I mean they have families that they want to get back to. They have fear for their own survival, and most importantly, they are probably not all that into what Putin says they're supposed to be into. You know, they probably don't care as much about this thing as Putin does. So we should use that. And what Bo is saying here is that there's a strong psychological effect in cutting off somebody's means of retreat. I have to agree. There is. And I think that is usable. So just assessing this as a matter of strategy, cutting off the escape route kind of makes sense like that. Now, that doesn't change the fact, though, that if these people are then scared and trapped, are they not going to fight harder? I'm still thinking, yes, they are. But let's look at some of the other things that hasn't been mentioned yet. We still have Abrams on the way, the most feared tank on planet Earth. Those puppies are coming. I don't believe they've entered the fight proper yet. So, not only have things gotten significantly worse for Russian soldiers over there now, but they appear to be much worse on the horizon.
Because if they have to fight, and you don't give them a way out, generally they fight pretty hard. But if they're terrified, if their command is in disarray, if they don't have good morale, if their supplies are disrupted, well, maybe they just give up. A lot of telegraphing is going on right now, all over the map. For people in the U.S., what most of what's getting covered deals with Crimea. But there's operations going on all over the map. And every Russian soldier along that line has a subconscious fear of them being right on where one of those arrows is pointing in a Ukrainian war room. The hit on the bridge, if it was in fact a hit, not just poor maintenance, it reinforces that for the troops in Crimea. Now, to be clear, Ukraine may not be going there, but keeping them off balance is important. And then there's probably also a psychological element for the Ukrainian side with this bridge. This bridge is very much a symbol of Russian imperialism. So it may just be that. It may just be, it's a supply route, so it's a legit target, but also it's symbolic, and they're wanting to boost their own morale. Could be that too. Ukraine has performed very well, and moving into Crimea, that would be risky, but let's be clear, pretty much every major success they've had thus far, American analysts, that's too risky. Russian troops are not in the best morale space. Ukraine may be trying to take advantage of that. And there's really nothing Russia can do to counter it at this point.
really interesting take on that. Do let me know in the comments if you guys would be interested in some American Web Brigade stuff. I'm talking like, yeah, making pro-Putin propaganda that has messages for Russian soldiers that want to surrender in it, so that they can share it around to those that want to know discreetly. Let me know if you're interested in that, and I'll do a how-to guide. It was a lot of fun in the beginning. I don't know that it actually worked. But I'll tell you, it is fun trying to throw wrenches in the Russian war machine. Let's look at some comments here. Wireless Mike saying, if they're conscripts that never wanted to be there in the first place, they'll run. Yes, I think that is very likely. And Wireless Mike also adding, attacking their symbols of power is a big psychological tactic. Wholeheartedly agree. Ooh, Obsessive Audio. Yes, Iraq was horrible and on false pretenses. Yeah. Agreed, and I think it helps us understand what these young Russian fellas might be thinking. Overall, the what you can do there is actually gonna maybe surprise you a little bit. When you see people on the left talking about this war, we need to get them correct. I've even seen the Majority Report saying things that just make me cringe. Saying things like, oh, we need to really talk about how much we're going to support this, what kind of weapons we're going to give them. We need to be part of the negotiation when it comes to ending this thing. Why? The conditions for ending it are crystal clear, and there is no negotiating to do. Russia has to leave. They've got to leave all of Ukraine, including Crimea. Doesn't matter that this is a 7 years older invasion that they did. And, all right, let's start with the reason I care about, the moral reasons of it. Can't let it happen. Can't let a bully get their way by bullying. This is one that's got to get punched directly in the nose, and that's that. But okay, we'll take self-interested reasons next. We cannot allow Russia to say that in the 21st century, this is still a viable way of expanding your territory, because Taiwan will be next. You don't want to fight with China? Okay, then make sure Russia gets thumped thoroughly. But we simply cannot allow the sins of our past to be played out again in front of our eyes and not take and not side against what we used to be. This is our chance in the United States. This is our chance to redeem ourselves a little bit. There's other huge issues we also have to worry about. There's Syria. There is Israel. Just doing an ethnic cleansing in Palestine. I'm not going to pretend like there aren't other things happening in other parts of the world. But this one, the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, this is an almost beat for beat repeat of what we did in 2003. We have an opportunity to redeem ourselves a little bit. The way we do it is by, and a lot of you are going to recognize this, being a good ally. What does being a good ally look like? Supporting Ukraine. Let Ukraine make the decisions. They want their country back. Okay. We got your back, Ukraine. Slava Ukraini. The war ends when Russia leaves. Was this a good tactic? I don't know. I don't even know if it was a tactic, as Bo points out. But I'm going to encourage you to keep supporting Ukraine. Let me know if you're interested in doing some web brigade type activities. And we cannot deny that, good Lord, the Ukrainian leadership's record so far has been stellar. They've got Russia yowling. So I think that if this was intentional, then it's probably going to end up inevitably being a devastating thing for the Russian invaders. Obsessive audio. 1991 borders is what needs to happen, including Crimea. Hell yes. Hell yes. UAF will be in Sevastopol unless their supplies get cut off by NATO, which Ukrainian armed forces, which doesn't seem like that will happen. Hell yes. 2 attacks, but none took out the bridge completely. No air power in Ukraine yet. It's insane to me that Ukraine has done as well as it has essentially without any air support. They are writing the new book of war. Obsessive audio. Picture what Ukraine would be like taken over by Russia, adjacent to Latvia, Estonia, Poland, Lithuania. Yeah. Pretty nightmarish, folks. Oh, good God Almighty. Well, despite that making my guts get all twisted up as I worry about Ukraine and Ukrainians, I do have to say, it's a victory. It's a victory. Speaking of, we have had all kinds of victories. I'm noticing as a general trend, leftist movements are on the rise, and they are just getting W after W after W. Majority Report recently played a segment that features amongst my favorite Ron Perlman quotes. Let's talk about it. Majority Report recently played one of my favorite Ron Perlman quotes. We're going to play it here as well. Now, was it war? War never changes? No. Was it, oh, damn it, this Hellboy makeup is entirely too thick? No. No, he's talking about the Hollywood strike happening right now. I think we have a writer's strike every once a decade. And every time that happens, it makes life better for the rest of us. Let's have a look at Majority Report's reporting on Ron Perlman's quote, and you'll see what I mean.
And this is not safe for work, ladies and gentlemen. There is some swearing involved in this. I should tell you right now.
Some radical politics.
This guy's always been pretty good. Ron Perlman, member of SAG-AFTRA. I am also a member of SAG-AFTRA. I will be. My plan is to get down to the picket lines on Thursday, so maybe I'll be calling in. That's the plan as it stands now. Subject to change because of all sorts of various complications that I cannot speak to at this point. But nevertheless, SAG-AFTRA on strike, 160,000 striking against those producers who signed the television and film contracts. My understanding is that there is an independent, would necessarily be low budget contract that signatories can sign with SAG, which they will still be doing those productions if they sign the the temporary agreement. So maybe there'll be maybe we'll get like a if this goes on long enough, we'll see like a burgeoning sort of independent sort of resurgence, as it were. Here is actor Ron Perlman on the SAG strike and the producers, who have been just really reprehensible in the way they've been talking about the SAG and the WGA strikes.
One thing before I get off this. The motherfucker who said we're going to keep this thing going until people start losing their houses and their apartments. Listen to me, motherfucker. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. Some of it is financial, some of it is karma, and some of it is just figuring out who the fuck said that. And we know who said that. And where he fucking lives. There's a lot of ways to lose your house. You wish that on people. You wish that families starve while you're making $27 fucking million a year for creating nothing. Be careful, motherfucker. Be really careful. Because that's the kind of shit that stirs shit up.
Good. Good. Truly, I'm sick to death of living in these. It really does feel like the 1920s, right? Where some guy with a cigar and a pocket watch is out there saying, "Bah, let them starve, ha ha ha." Somebody who looks like Oswald Cobblepot is out there just saying the most callous shit imaginable. And we're just supposed to turn to each other and be like, well, he's our better. Well, he's our better. Well, they're our better. I don't know when Americans, for God's sake, decided we were going to have a caste system again. I don't know when we decided that we were going to have nobility again, royalty. That needs to end. That attitude in Americans needs to end. We need that attitude. Somebody says they hope your house goes away. I don't care if it was a rich person. They're allowed to treat us like filth. No. No, somebody says that, you can say it right back to them. In fact, you can say, I hope I find you, you rotten. Because that's the sort of threat we make to each other all the time. We need to stop treating rich people like they're any different. Now, I'm glad that rich guy stood up and had the proper attitude about it. If you see one of your fellow poors, by which I mean anyone that does not own a yacht, if you see a fellow regular person trying to tone down how we talk about the rich, don't let them tone it down. I mean, all right. I grant we can't be out there doing crimes, but just don't have this over caution with how we talk about rich people. They deserve slightly less than everybody else, not much more than everybody else. If you're rich, you do deserve to have slightly less than everybody else in terms of, like, rights. Why? Because whatever's going on in the world's working out better for you than it is working out for everybody else, so you require more responsibilities associated with your wealth. If you spend it in such a way that it harms people significantly, you should have consequences. What they do not deserve is these goddamn kid gloves we treat them with, where they have to have 3 major disasters that kill multiple workers before we even consider possibly maybe issuing a sternly worded letter. That nonsense has to end, and Ron Perlman has got the correct attitude. Thank you, Ron Perlman. Consistently one of the best human beings.
Peace out.
I don't think he really meant the peace out part.
Yeah. What a badass. It's important that actors that have that cachet have some money in the bank say that kind of stuff, because the actors making, you know, poverty wages essentially can't.
Well, that's the fascinating thing about what we're seeing with this strike. Also with the writer strike, and I'm basing this based upon both the writer strike from 2008 and you know, past strikes with actors. The big names that you see that are coming out, the big names, they don't need the union at this point, and they may not have needed the union for decades, the truth be told. But they are showing solidarity with their younger selves, and the vast majority of people in the union, frankly, who don't know if they're going to get a job in 2 months, 6 months, in 18 months, or whatnot. Even if they do, and particularly now, things have flattened, so there's no real FU money in the way that there used to be for people there, and there is so much work that goes in before you see pay.
Let's let him finish the point.
Auditioning, I mean, the hustle and this and that, and then maybe doing shows that really don't pay you that much, and then doing shows that don't even pay you enough that at the end of the year you can get health insurance. So you're always working 2 jobs for a long.
Okay. Couple of things. I called it a writer's strike earlier. I apologize. It's an actor's strike, but similar. It's just the SAG-AFTRA strike, I guess, is the way to put it, because it also affects writers. The important thing to understand here is they are striking because as technology has evolved, as always, the bosses have tried to screw them over more and more and more. The broad situation is this: as things like AI develop, as things like streaming become more popular, what is happening is that, in broad strokes, the bosses are taking home more and more money per job, per production, per whatever, and the people that make it are taking less and less and less based on how their contracts work. There are people that wrote some of your favorite shows that are on food stamps. That is how it is working these days. One thing I wanted to say about actors specifically, a cool thing about the structure of the industry and just the nature of making a program, is that folks like Ron Perlman are going to end up working with folks like me. I was an actor that was not doing it as a serious career, but I was doing it as a serious job for a while, like, you know, to try to pay the rent. That's the majority of actors. That's the vast majority. It's just people that are like, I ain't going to be Tom Cruise, but you might need a dopey-looking honky to sell you a Chevy. Sign me up. Well, when you have the best of the best working with the most anonymous of the lower end folks, I told a story about bugging The Rock on set once. When you have that happen, it does a hell of a lot for keeping, believe it or not, egos down, or at least keeping these people just interacting with regular human beings. Want to know why Hollywood tends to lean left? Mostly it's that. I realize there's also, it's difficult to tell stories from a right-wing perspective because right-wing perspectives tend to be very skewed and not based in reality. Sure. But in my experience, mostly it's just the fact that everybody, even the creme de la creme, they have to work with extras. They have to work with regular folks. And when your coworkers are regular folks, not your employees, but your coworkers are normal, you have a lot more sympathy for normal folks. You have a lot more understanding of how the world works. Really, really glad to see this development. Let's check in with Sam Cedar, though, as he gives us a little more details into how specifically this stuff is working these days.
Long time. And the difference we're really seeing in both these strikes is that the people who know that they're going to lose money from this and don't need the union are showing solidarity with their union. And that is, I think, it is of this era.
Yeah. I mean, I see this in sports too, with like when like the NFLPA or other labor unions, which are required for these leagues to have antitrust exemptions. When they stand with players that are making, league minimum or whatever, it's most important when those people stand with them as well, because you'll see these claims of hypocrisy when it's in fact the complete opposite. Like the highest paid athletes, the highest paid actors, they're the outlier, and the reason that they're speaking out is just because they've achieved the pinnacle of their profession and they're trying to not burn the bridge behind them, God forbid.
Yeah.
And it's a high-profile example of labor solidarity that I think is some of the most helpful stuff that we're seeing, because it's getting into the zeitgeist.
Yeah, and our society is just really bad at, and the media is really bad at conveying what's going on to people. Like, everybody talks about how highly paid, like, for instance, basketball players are.
Yeah.
And it's like those contracts have gone up, but guess what the share of the labor percentage versus the ownership percentage has actually gone down. Owners are nearly at 49%. They were much less, like, back in the old days. So, like, that's the actual key, is when Perlman says, like, getting all of those millions for making nothing, like, that's people who sit in those ownership positions, like, they do nothing.
I say, with the NFL, median salary $860K, and then the average year of playing is like 4 or 5 years, and then what do you do with the rest of your life? Like,
with a broken body.
With a broken body. I mean, now we're making it about sports, but the point is just like it's complete. Like these trade publications like Deadline, Screw You, who cover this stuff, they're so pro management, and they really they flatten these, they flatten the power dynamics, and they make it about like, oh, these privileged actors, when the
reality is not that. Sorry for cutting off Emma Vigland. All right, so the basic gist of it is this: with streaming, you have there's multiple issues that they're looking at. One is that with streaming, they can structure deals for writing, acting very differently. They can, for example, pay a writer to show up in a room and work for a day to write, let's say, 3 episodes. And instead of the old contract deals where if the show gets picked up, then you get a check every time it's played on television, that's just it. You're paid for those 3 days, and that's that. Or the residuals are simply written out all together. So you're the writer on the show, but you're only paid literally for writing the episodes and not for when the episodes play at all, in other words. For actors, you have a similar thing. Like they are... In fact, I had this done to me. This was being done back during a little film called Batman vs. Superman: Dawn of Justice. I appear in that film about 1,000 times because I was one of 5 people in the Detroit area where LexCorp, the set, was built. I was one of like 5 people that happened to be in arm's reach when they needed to get the crowd. And what did they do? They had a stand like so. They scanned our front. They scanned our side. And their plan, I said I appear. I don't actually know if this came to pass. Their plan was to literally just copy and paste us into the crowd for a funeral for Superman scene. I don't even think that scene made it into the final cut. But the point being, this has been boiling for a long time. And what the plan is to do for background actors, now that technology has advanced a little bit more, is just replace them. Get some scans on one production, make them for $50 or whatever insult they offer. Make those nobody actors sign away the rights to use those images forever in anything. And then every time they've got a scene that requires a lot of background actors, nope, click, drag, background actors. There they go. Done. We don't have to pay anybody now. It's things like that this strike is about. And it's going to be a damn good thing if this strike is fully successful. It must be, because otherwise the productions you're going to get are going to plummet in quality, and the industry itself will be hollowed out. It'll be films made entirely by rich people with no sense of how the world works, and you will absolutely lose out on the Ron Perlmans having to work with normal people and losing their perspective as well. And generally speaking, the soul of these stories will evaporate as they become all a bunch of tacky-ass superhero movies based off an original thing somebody wrote 60 years ago, because nobody has had a creative idea in the place where we make movies since they outlawed those. Wireless mic. Ooh. There we go. Wireless Mike says they want to treat everybody the same way the Three Stooges were treated back in the day. Yeah. The streaming services grew exponentially, says Obsessive Audio. While everyone was bunkering down during the pandemic, those numbers couldn't last. That's true. Very true. Oh, yeah, Obsessive Audio. They did it in Lord of the Rings. A lot of those armies were graphically generated. And yes, I'm in that film. I think, I don't remember. Let's see. What I did that. What was that show Ricky Gervais did? I lived it essentially for a while. Just being a background actor. It's the best. By the way, folks, if you get an opportunity to be a background actor, it is the best side gig on earth. There's a big buffet. You get to pluck from that all day. I'm talking on like a big movie set. Because you get to swim in those waters, but you're outside of the food chain, so to speak. You don't have to, it's not your fault if something disastrous happens. So it's kind of like being on a museum tour, but you get a paycheck, and you get fed all day. But I was in the LexCorp scenes. If you see people playing ping pong in the background, I'm one of those guys. I think they cut the part where where Jesse Eisenberg plays basketball. But if he looks mildly pissed off during that scene, if they include the deleted scenes and he looks annoyed, well, it's because we had a The Rock moment. I accidentally called him Michael Cera, and it seemed like I was being witty, but I just genuinely got nervous and said the wrong name, and things were not cool after that. So summary from that: get a job as a background actor if you can. And yes, this technology has been brewing for a while. And by the way, it's not all bad. There's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with being like, I do not have the budget to film a bunch of orcs charging down a hill. I'm going to film 2 guys dressed up like orcs charging down a hill and then copy paste them. Okay. I think that's okay. But you have to pay something for it. You cannot just say, we are going to outlaw background actors as not outlaw, but we're going to get rid of the need for background actors entirely because we paid like 10 people $50 each a decade ago. That's not cool. And the reason it's not cool to me is simply because it is such an unfair deal for those people. The valuable thing they're giving away, there's no way they understand. They just don't understand it. And even if they would take it, it's a predatory deal. They're taking it then because they're desperate. If they're willing to sell ad infinitum rights to their image for $50, I mean, it's one of those things where that's when it must be incumbent upon the organizations that control this to prevent that deal from happening, because it's a predatory deal. Like, in the same way, you can't charge prohibitive amounts for water or electricity. There's safety. Oh, how do I put this? There's rules in place that prevent these things from only being available to the ultra rich. Similarly, there needs to be rules in place that prevent people who aren't ultra famous actors or ultra famous writers or whatever from signing themselves out of a whole career. Regardless, the strike's going well, and it is. I mostly wanted to show that to you just so that you're aware of the general situation happening in the United States right now, in the whole world right now. Labor unions are rising up. Their importance has been rediscovered. Let's not forget it this time, and let's support them. Every opportunity you can to support a striking union. If you see a picket line and it's a bunch of workers striking, bring them a pizza. Bring them an ice-cold lemonade. Bring them, just slow down your car, lean out the window and say, hey, attaboy, go get them. Be supportive of these things. And if you see one happening and you don't see it on the news, oh, hell, don't even wait. If you see one happening, just write your local news and ask if they're going to cover it. You might be able to do a massive amount of change just by being in the right place at the right time, like that. Contact your local news, write them an email, say, are you guys going to cover this? There's a good chance that they will grab a MMJ, it's a multimedia journalist, and throw a camera in their hands and say, go get this. It's worth pursuing. Anyway, folks, it has been solidarity, says Obsessive Audio. Hell yes. Really, the scanning deal should be applied to every actor. Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And a correction from Wireless Mike for me, Lord of the Rings did use a lot of CGI characters for the giant scenes, but they also used hundreds of actors in makeup and costume. It was a massive shoot. Yeah, 100%. Wireless Mike also saying my local news has been covering it. Yes. Local news, let's just take this moment at the end here to chat about that. Local news is an incredibly powerful tool that you guys can use. That question that I passed along to you, asking them, are you covering this? That is so incredibly effective. All you're doing is letting them know that you're interested in that thing and that thing is happening. You would be surprised. People in local news will very frequently know every last detail about something happening at location A. And then on the other side of the street, a bigger, more important thing could be happening, and they know nothing about it. Why? Is it because they're incompetent? No, it's because they heard about location A thing first, and they've been doing the work. And when they're doing the work, that's all they're looking at. They're making phone calls, writing emails, etc., etc., etc. And sometimes it can seem, when then the news comes out and they do a story about a thing across the street from the big thing, sometimes it can seem like, oh, they must have nefarious reasons for not covering the big thing. Not so most of the time. Most of the time, it's just that's how it shook out. So if you write people and let them know that X, Y, or Z is happening and that you're interested in it, that has a very good chance of affecting what will play on the television that day. And oh, hey, by the way, this is where national stories come from. When you watch MSNBC, CNN, whatever, when you watch them next, look at where they say this was first reported. Yeah, you're going to get a lot of Washington Post writes or New York Times discovered, but you're also going to get a lot of stuff like W whatever, whatever, whatever in Florida, or KP yada yada, super sounds of the 70s in whatever, west of the Mississippi, said this. Local news affiliates will look at their most interesting stories, and they will give a heads up to their parent companies about it. And they have an arrangement with the parent companies that those parent companies get those local stories. That is a huge deal. Something you tell people that you want covered could turn into a story that goes national. You have that kind of power. Don't be afraid to use it. Delighted, Wireless Mike, that your local news is covering the strike. Remember that this power exists for everything that happens around you. I would say, putting a cap on today, it's largely good news. Things are looking left for the near future. Let's keep that momentum going. Thank you all for joining me tonight. This has been WYCD Wicked. That stands for what you can do. My name's Jake.